The planet Valmora burned under a red sky. Explosions lit the horizon as black warships descended from the clouds like shadows of death. The Arxen, a peaceful and intelligent alien species, had no real army. They had lived in harmony for centuries, relying on diplomacy and trade, but now that peace was shattered. The enemy was brutal. They were called the Krivari, insect-like creatures with armored shells and no concept of mercy. They struck without warning, tore through cities, and left nothing behind but ash and bone. The Arxen defenders had been crushed in less than a week. Commander Velton stood in the war room of the last surviving base. His silver skin glistened with sweat as he stared at the large screen showing red markers Krivari ships. He pressed a button and opened a transmission to all frequencies. "This is Commander Velton of the Arxen Alliance," he said, voice shaking. "Our defenses have fallen. The Krivari are wiping out our people. We request emergency assistance. Anyone please help us." He paused. There was only static. Seconds passed. Then minutes. An officer stepped forward. "Collector, no response. The Galactic Council has gone silent. No allies are answering." Velton clenched his fists. "Then we are truly alone." Suddenly, the screen flickered. A new signal came through. It wasn't from any known ally. The language was translated automatically by the system. "We received your distress call. Reinforcements en route. ATA, 7 hours." Velton's eyes widened. Who sent this?" The system displayed a simple tag. "Origin, Earth, species, human." The room went silent. "Earth, 1. The officers asked. "That backwater world. Are they even spacefaring?" Velton looked confused. "I've never heard of them before. Are they pirates? Mercenaries?" The officer checked the galactic database. Humans are listed as Deathworlders. Category 5. Everyone turned to look at him. Velton frowned. "What's a Deathworlder?" The officer's voice lowered. "A species that evolved on a planet so dangerous only the strongest survive. Toxic air, violent weather, deadly creatures, constant wars. It's a miracle they even made it to space." Velton hesitated. "And they are coming to help us." The officer nodded. Apparently, the commander looked at the burning sky again. "Let's hope they're not worse than the Krivari." 7 hours later, the Arxen radar detected a single dropship entering the planet's atmosphere. It wasn't large. In fact, it was too small for a full army. It landed outside the main base with a low rumble. Velton and his guards rushed to the landing zone. The doors of the dropship opened with a hiss. 6 figures stepped out. 6. That was all. They were tall, heavy-built, wearing dark armor marked with faded flags and strange symbols. Their faces were scarred, their eyes were cold, and they carried weapons no Arxen had ever seen. Velton stepped forward. "I am Commander Velton. You answered our call." The tallest human, a woman with a metal arm, nodded. "Got your message?" The commander looked behind them. "Is this all of you?" Velton blinked. "I don't understand. There are thousands of Krivari." "You're just," she interrupted him. "We've fought worse." Another human spoke. He was younger, chewing something. "Yeah, on Verdunine there were 50 of us. We took out 20,000 flesh beasts in 3 days." The Arxen guards whispered among themselves. Velton cleared his throat. "You're serious?" The woman stepped closer, looking him straight in the eye. "You wanted help. We're the help." Velton didn't know whether to feel hope or fear. That night, the humans left the base without saying where they were going. The Arxen officers tried to follow them but were told to stay back. "We don't need babysitters," one human said. Velton stayed up in the command center watching satellite feeds. The humans moved too fast for creatures with their body mass. They ran through forests, climbed cliffs, and vanished into enemy territory. Then, the night came alive with sound explosions, screams, strange flashes of blue fire. The Krivari were being hunted. Velton stared in disbelief as the feed showed Krivari units retreating from just 6 humans. One Krivari gunship exploded midair. Another was dragged to the ground by what looked like a grappling claw fired from a human's shoulder. By morning, over 400 Krivari were dead. The humans walked back into the base with blood on their armor and not a single wound. Velton couldn't believe it. How did you do this?" One of the humans shrugged. You panic. We plan. That's the difference. Another laughed. Your enemies use numbers. We use fear. Velton asked carefully, Are you soldiers or something else? The woman smiled again. We're survivors. Earth doesn't make people. It makes monsters. Lucky for you, we're your monsters now. As news of the Kravari defeat spread, some Arxen began to feel hope again, but others were uneasy. These humans, they didn't act like normal warriors. They didn't follow commands. They barely spoke to anyone, and their eyes never stopped scanning, watching, measuring threats. Velton asked the lead human privately, Why did you come? No one else answered. She looked at the sky. We were watching. Always are. Galaxy thinks we're savages. Maybe we are, but we don't ignore cries for help. Not yet, Velton nodded. You saved us. She shook her head. Not yet. The Kravari weren't done. Their main force was still on its way. This time, it wasn't hundreds, it was thousands. Massive. Carriers entered orbit, preparing to launch a full planetary invasion. Panic returned. The Arxen prepared for evacuation. The base trembled as Kravari ships began to land. But the humans didn't run. They set traps across the mountain passes. They hacked the enemy's communications. They planted charges under bridges and hidden roads. And when the Kravari marched in, the humans unleashed hell. Explosions lit up the valleys. Snipers picked off commanders. Traps crushed armored beasts. The humans moved like ghosts, never staying in one place. They knew how to turn fear into a weapon. One Arxen soldier watched a human fight up close. She used a broken piece of metal as a blade, took down 5 Kravari alone, and walked away like nothing happened. The soldier whispered, They're not people, they're death. After 3 days of brutal fighting, the Kravari finally pulled back. The remaining forces fled the planet. Velton watched the skies clear for the first time in weeks. The Arxen had survived because of them. Because of the Deathworlders, he met the lead human one last time at the landing zone. You saved our world, Velton said. She didn't smile this time. Next time, don't wait until it's too late. Will you stay? He asked. No, we're not made for peace. Velton lowered his head. We owe you everything. The human looked at him, eyes cold but honest. Then remember us, not as heroes. As a warning, the dropship rose into the sky and vanished into the stars and across the galaxy. Stories began to spread of the planet that called for help, and the monsters who came to answer. They weren't soldiers, they were Deathworlders, and they had changed everything. The landing zone was still smoking from the earlier battle. The Kravari had fled, leaving behind broken weapons, burned bodies, and shattered armor. Their forces had never known such a defeat. Not from Arxen, not from anyone, yet only 6 humans had done this. The Arxen gathered at the edge of the base, watching the humans with quiet fear and curiosity. They walked among the wreckage calmly, collecting parts, checking traps, and laughing softly to each other like it was just another day. Commander Velton stood near the edge of the field. He still couldn't believe it. 6. That was all it took. 6 Deathworlders, Commander, said Lieutenant Ralph, stepping beside him. Should we ask them to stay longer? There are still Kravari scouts in the mountains. Velton didn't answer right away. He was watching the humans. One of them, a tall man with dark skin and a heavy rifle, was casually eating something from a metal pouch while sitting on a wrecked Kravari tank. They are not like us, Velton said finally. They don't follow rules. They don't ask permission. Ralph frowned. Then why did they come? Velton shook his head. That is what I still don't understand. Later that evening, the base's main chamber was filled with whispers. They're mutants? No, assassins. Look at their eyes. I heard they killed one of their own just to test a weapon. Stories spread fast among the Arxen. They had never seen humans before, not in real life. And now that they had, no one could stop talking about them. In the command room, Velton called a private meeting. Only senior officers and the lead human were present. Her name was Commander Reyes. She sat casually across the table, helmet in, her lap, scars across her face like battle medals. Her metal arm clicked softly as she leaned forward. Velton cleared his throat. We appreciate your help, but I must ask again. Why did you come? No other species responded. No one else even tried. Reyes stared at him for a moment, then spoke. We monitor distress calls across the outer rim. Most times, we ignore them. Politics, greed, alliances. It gets messy. Then why us? Because we saw who was attacking you, the Kravari. We've fought them before. Velton's eyes widened. You survived a Kravari invasion before, Reyes nodded. We didn't just survive. We ended it. There was silence in the room. One of the Arxen officers leaned forward nervously. But, you're only 6, Reyes smiled. Deathworlders don't need numbers. We need a reason. Outside, the humans had set up a small, temporary shelter. Not inside the base outside, in the open air. Near the cliffs, the younger Arxen soldiers watched from a distance. Curious, one human, the youngest, was building something out of metal pieces and Kravari tech. He noticed them and waved. See something cool? The Arxen hesitated, then slowly approached. The human pressed a button. The device lit up, hummed, and projected a 3D map of the region. I call it a Kravari splitter. Uses their tech against them. Tracks their thermal signatures. One Arxen asked, "Why are you helping us?" The human shrugged. "Because you asked." The Arxen looked confused. But no one else came. That's why we did. 2 days later, the second wave of Kravari came. They didn't land in ships this time. They came through the mountain. Pass, crawling out of caves and deep tunnels. Dozens at a time, it was a surprise attack. The Arxen scouts didn't see them, until it was nearly too late. Alarms blared across the base. Soldiers ran to stations. Artillery aimed into the hills. Velton rushed to the wall, heart pounding. "They're surrounding us," someone yelled. The base was vulnerable from the east. If the Kravari reached the fuel depot, it would be over. Turn to his comms. "Where are the humans?" No answer. "Find them, now." But before anyone could respond, a massive explosion shook the eastern cliffs. Bright red fire shot into the sky. Then another blast, and another. The ground shook as a section of the mountain collapsed, burying half the Kravari force in rubble. And fire? Velton stood stunned. Then a voice came through the radio. "Eastern flank, secured. You're welcome." It was Reyes. The humans returned to the base that night, covered in ash and blood. Grinning, "We scouted the tunnels yesterday," one said. "Planted charges, waited for them to crawl in." Velton stepped forward. "You saved us again." Without even telling us, Reyes looked at him. "You're not trained for this. If we told you, you'd try to help and get in the way." There was no insult in her tone, just honesty. Velton nodded slowly. "You're right. We would have—" One of the older Arxen generals stepped forward. "You don't act like a military. You don't take orders. You don't share plans." Reyes smirked. "We're not military. We're Deathworlders. We don't follow orders. We follow threats." Another human chimed in. "And we follow one rule. Never lose." Later, as the stars blinked quietly over Valmora, Velton sat with Reyes near the wall. Watching the sky, "You confuse me," he said. "How so? You kill like monsters, but you came to help. You speak of peace, but bring destruction. What are you really?" Reyes leaned back, looking at the stars. "Earth is a place where the wind can kill you. The animals, the plants, even the water none of it, wants you alive. So we learn to fight everything, even each other. We're violent, yes, but we're also stubborn. We see pain, and we move toward it." She looked at him. "You called for help, so we came." Velton looked down. "We were desperate. That's when people show who they really are." There was a long silence. Then she added softly, "You're lucky it was us who answered. Not all Deathworlders are like us." Velton turned toward her. "There are others." Reyes didn't answer. The next morning, a strange signal appeared in orbit. A Kravari ship, massive, too big to be a scout, had entered the system. It was a command ship. Velton called an emergency meeting. "This is it. Their main force is arriving." Reyes looked at the data. "You need to evacuate your civilians." Velton shook his head. "There's nowhere to go. They control all jump points." Reyes stood. "Then we don't run. We bleed them here." Velton looked exhausted. "We can't survive another wave." Reyes smiled. "Just a little. Maybe not. But we're not done yet." The screen flickered. As another transmission came through, it was Kravari. They never spoke before now. A message. "You fight well. Unusual. Not Arkson, who defends you now. Belton stared at the message. Reyes stepped forward and typed a reply. Deathworlders. No answer came back, but the Kravari ship began to slow, and in that silence, for the first time since the war began, the Arkson felt something new. Not fear, but power. The forests east of the Arkson base were silent. Too silent, tall black trees stood like statues under a red sun. Mist rolled through the underbrush, hiding broken branches and claw marks scorched into the ground. The Kravari had been here. Tracks showed their heavy legs. Bloodstains marked their path. But now they were going to vanish into the shadows. Sergeant Dax, the youngest of the 6 humans, crouched low and scanned the area with a thermal lens. Nothing moved. They're hiding, he whispered. They know we're here. Reyes stepped. Up behind him, metal arm humming softly. Let them hide. We'll find them. Far behind them, the Arkson stayed inside the safety of their walls. Velton had begged to send scouts, but Reyes refused. Your soldiers aren't ready for what's out here, she had told him. This part's ours. Now, the humans moved like predators, quiet, focused, lethal. Corporal Vale planted a sensor spike in the ground. We got 2 clicks, range covered. If they breathe, we'll know. Reyes nodded. Good. Now we wait. Hours passed. The sun dipped low dot, then dash movement. The sensors flared. Heat signatures. Multiple fast-moving. They came from the east and west, closing in fast. Reyes ranged her rifle. Eyes up, they're flanking. The humans took position, and then from the trees they came. The Kravari burst from the shadows with a roar, claws flashing, mandibles snapping. Dozens of them, armored and hungry. But this time, they weren't charging unarmed villagers or weak guards. They were charging Deathworlders. Reyes was the first to fire. Her pulse rifle cracked the air, sending blue bolts into the first Kravera's face. Its head snapped back. Body crashing into the dirt. Dox rolled under a claw swipe and tossed a small disc into the crowd. A second later, boom, a flash grenade exploded, blinding the enemy. Vale moved like a shadow, slicing through limbs with a double blade. Too slow, she muttered, as one Kravari lunged toward her, and she stepped aside, casually stabbing it. In the neck, one of the Kravari screamed in their native tongue. These are not Arkson. These are, he never finished. A shot blew his head off. Back at the base, alarms screamed. The command center lit up with motion sensors going wild. They're under attack. Shouted one officer. Velton stared at the feed. Humans, they're surrounded. Rolf stepped forward. Should we send support? Velton hesitated. No, not yet. The forest became a war zone. Trees shattered. Kravari bodies piled up. Reyes kicked a wounded Kravari into a ravine. You invaded the wrong planet. One of the creatures hissed at her. This is not your war, human. She raised her rifle. It is now. She fired. Silence followed. The last Kravari fell to the ground with a dull thud. Dax exhaled. That's 37. We good? Reyes scanned the bodies. We're good. The battle was over. But something felt wrong. Too easy that night. The humans returned to the base, bloodied and silent. Velton met them at the gates. His eyes scanned the scratches on their armor, the stains on their boots, the smell of burned flesh around them. You survived, he said quietly. Reyes walked past him. Of course we did. Inside the base, she dropped her helmet on the table. That was just a scout force. They were testing us. Velton frowned. Testing. They wanted to see what we are. Now they know. He looked nervous, and now Reyes stared at him. Now they'll come with everything. Later, a medical unit examined one of the Kravari corpses recovered. From the forest, the Arkson scientists gathered around, puzzled. Strange, one said. This one has cybernetic enhancements. Look, its claws have implants, new tech. Another nodded. Their biology is adapting, they're evolving. Velton stood behind them, silent. Then he asked, how many more of these could be out there? No one had an answer. That evening, the humans gathered outside the base. They sat in a circle, weapons nearby, as the stars blinked above. Reyes leaned back, staring into the sky. They're changing, she said. Vale nodded. They're learning. Dax threw a rock into the fire. So we'll still beat them. Reyes glanced at him. Will we? There was a pause. She continued. This isn't just a fight anymore. This is going to be a war. And we're not the only ones watching. Vale raised an eyebrow. You think someone else is coming? Reyes looked toward the sky. I know they are. Back in the command room, Velton watched the battle footage again. Over and over, 6 humans surrounded, dozens of enemies. And they came back alive. Not just alive Unshaken. He turned to his officers. We've fought beside many species, but none like them. Rolf nodded slowly. They fight without fear. No, Velton corrected. They fight with something stronger than fear. The next morning, a message arrived. On a secure channel, not from the Kravari, not from any known ally, .encrypted.strange, language the translators struggled to decode it. Then, words formed on the screen. We see the Deathworlders have arrived. We will not allow their kind to spread. Velton felt a chill. Who sent this? He asked. The officer shook his head. Unknown origin, not Kravari, not Council. Something new. Velton stared at the message. Another enemy, or something worse. He walked to the window, watching the sun rise over the trees. The humans had drawn attention, not just from the Kravari, but from others. Back in the human camp, Reyes checked her weapon one last time. The blade was clean, the ammo full. Her eyes were tired. Dax approached Commander. She looked up. You ever wonder, he said, why we keep doing this? She didn't answer at first. Then she spoke softly. Because someone has to. He sat down beside her. Back on Earth, we were killers. Soldiers, mercenaries. Reyes nodded. Now we're something worse. Heroes, he smirked. No, she said. Examples. Dax went quiet. Then he asked, do you think they'll ever trust us? Reyes looked toward the base. They already do. That's the problem. Far above, in deep space. An unknown ship, observed Velmora from the shadows. It didn't send transmissions. It didn't respond to pings. It simply watched, a black eye in the dark, and deep within its metal halls. A voice whispered in a dead language. The Deathworlders walk among stars. Prepare the veil. Let the hunt begin. The room was dim, lit only by the soft glow of a holographic map. Commander Velton sat across from Commander Reyes inside the strategy chamber of the base. Outside, the sun was setting behind thick clouds, painting the sky blood red. Reyes tapped on the table. A blue sphere appeared, a rotating image of a planet.earth.vel. Single quotes. Tan leaned forward. So that's her home. Reyes nodded. Yes, that's Earth. Velton studied it. It doesn't look dangerous. Reyes almost smiled. That's the trick. It never does. Until it's too late. She waved her metal hand, and the image changed. Giant storms swept over continents. Volcanic eruptions, blizzards, droughts, earthquakes. The map flickered again. Wolves, hunting in frozen forests. Snakes, striking in deserts. Oceans filled with sharks, and jungles crawling with poison. Your planet is wild, Velton said quietly. Reyes locked eyes with him. It wants to kill you. Elsewhere in the base, Arxan scientists had begun their own investigation. They wanted to understand who the humans really were. Not just what they did, but why they did it. One of the biologists, Scholar Minvek, stood before a data wall full of charts and footage. Earth, he began, has the highest known concentration of apex predators per square kilometer. Nearly every large species is violent, and still humans dominate them all. Another scholar spoke, but their bodies, they're soft, no claws, no armor, no natural weapons. Minvek pointed to a screen. True, but they have this. He tapped his head. And this, he tapped his heart. The screen changed, against showing scenes of war. A man lifting rubble off a trapped child. A woman crossing a frozen wasteland. Alone, soldiers holding ground against impossible odds. Intelligence without compassion is cold. Compassion without strength is weak. But humans have both. What makes them dangerous? Back in the strategy chamber, Velton was still staring at Earth's images. You evolved there on that planet. Reyes nodded. Barely. Took us thousands of years just to survive it. Then we built cities, then weapons, then we went to space. Velton was quiet. Why would you ever leave a place like that? Reyes looked serious. Because we wanted peace. Velton raised an eyebrow. Peace, but your kind. You fight like devils. She nodded. Because we've seen what happens when peace fails. Dax entered the chamber, holding a datapad. Commander, we've finished decoding the message from orbit. The unknown signal. It's bad. Reyes turned to Velton. Let's show him they played the message. On the same warning, we see the Deathworlders have arrived. We will not allow their kind to spread. Velton frowned. Who are they? Dax answered. No idea. Not Kravari. Not Council. But they know us. That's what worries me. Velton stepped closer to the screen. Why would anyone fear you this much? Reyes said nothing. Dax did because we change things. Wherever humans go, things don't stay the same. The next morning, the base was tense. The soldiers whispered again. Not just about the Kravari, but about the humans. One Arxan lieutenant said quietly, I heard they used to fight each other for territory on their own planet. Another added, I saw footage of their history. They had weapons that could destroy entire cities in seconds. Why would anyone evolve in a place like that? One asked. Maybe they didn't evolve. Maybe Earth forged them. No one argued. Inside the command chamber, Reyes and Velton were discussing the next step. The Kravari won't wait long, she said. They're watching, testing, gathering strength. Velton nodded. We have a plan to send a warning to the nearby colonies. Maybe someone else will join us. Reyes shook her head. Too late for that. You need to stop hoping others will come. Then what do we do? Reyes stared at the map. We make a stand here. Velton looked uncertain. With just 6 of you. She looked back at him. 6 Deathworlders are worth more than 1,000 who run. That night, Velton sat alone in his quarters. He opened the Galactic database and searched for death. Only a few names came up. Earth was ranked Category 5, the highest threat level for a habitable planet. Other Deathworlds had long gone silent. Earth was one of the few still sending people into space. He scrolled further. Wars, plagues, natural disasters, extinction events, and still humans thrived. Velton closed the file. He finally understood. They weren't like anyone else in the medical lab. Scholar Minvek continued his study. He had just scanned one of the humans' neural helmets. What he found shocked him. These helmets connect directly to the brain, he told his assistant. But they don't control the user. They learn from them. The human mind adapts. Fast, it teaches the machine how to fight better. The assistant whispered. Then the longer they fight, Minvek nodded, the more dangerous they become. Out in the field, Reyes and her team were scouting a series of deep caves near the southern edge of the valley. They found signs of Kravari tunnels' fresh tracks, broken roots, and claw marks on the walls. Vale placed explosives. Dax marked escape paths. I don't like this, Dax muttered. Too quiet. Reyes nodded. They're close, probably watching. She looked up at the cave ceiling, thinking, they think we're monsters, she said. Vale smiled. Aren't we? No, Reyes replied softly. We're the answer. To monsters. Back at the base, a debate broke out among the Arxan generals. We cannot trust them, said General Relo. Too unpredictable. They've saved us twice, countered another. Without them, we'd be dead. Relo raised his voice. But at what cost? What will they want in return? Velton entered the room quietly and listened. When the arguing stopped, he stepped forward. They haven't asked for anything. The room fell silent. He looked around. We called for help, and no one came. No one but them. Another general asked, what if they're only here to test their weapons? What if we're just practice? Velton looked down for a moment, then back up. I've seen them bleed for strangers. I've seen them bury our dead beside theirs. They don't treat this like practice. He paused. They treat it like a promise. That evening, the Arxan held a small ceremony for the civilians lost in the Kravari attack. Lights floated into the sky. Names were whispered to everyone's surprise. The humans came. They didn't speak. They stood quietly at the back. Reyes removed her helmet. So did the others. And when the lights rose, Vale closed her eyes. Dax placed his hand over his heart. After the ceremony, Velton approached Reyes. You didn't have to come. Reyes looked at the stars. Yes, we did. He asked, do you always fight for people you don't know? She answered without looking at him. Double quotes, no. Just the ones who still have hope. In the shadows of deep space, The black ship still watched. Inside, alien voices whispered, mechanical and cold. The Deathworlders grow close to the Arxen that cannot be allowed. Prepare for contact. The purge begins soon. The sky turned black before the first shot was fired. Above the planet Velmora, massive shadows moved across the stars. Kravari warships, dozens of them descended from orbit like a curtain of death. They made no announcement, no warning, just silence, and then fire. Commander Velton watched the radar screen as it filled with red dots. "They're here," he said quietly. His officers didn't speak. No one needed to. The Kravari weren't just returning. They were invading inside. The command center alarms screamed. Soldiers rushed to stations. Emergency lights flickered. Outside the base, the planet trembled as enemy ships began atmospheric entry. Reyes stood on the wall. Eyes locked on the sky. The Kravari weren't sending scouts this time. This was a full-force assault. She pressed her comm. "All units prepare for contact. Engage only on my signal. Hold position until we see them." Dax stood beside her, looking through binoculars. "They brought everything. Air units, tanks, ground swarms." Reyes tightened the strap on her armor. "Good, so did we." Vale joined. Them, pulling a large case behind her, brought the special toys. Reyes glanced at it, flamethrowers. Vale grinned. "Leave." Meanwhile, deep in the mountains, east of the base, a low hum filled the air. It was the Kravari vanguard. Armored, fast, and brutal, they sprinted over rocky terrain. Like hunting beasts, one of them raised a claw and spoke in their tongue. "Crush the soft ones. Kill the humans last. We want to see their eyes when they fall." Another hissed. "Their scent is different. Deathworlders." The leader snarled, "Then we'll teach them fear." The battle began at sunset. The first Kravari wave crashed into the outer walls. Explosives detonated under their feet. Fire tore through their ranks, but they kept coming. Arxen soldiers fired from the towers. Some held steady, others panicked. These were not trained warriors, they were scientists, civilians, builders. And they were breaking Veltan. Ran between stations, shouting orders. "Hold the line, aim for the eyes, do not retreat." Still, the walls began to fall, until the humans stepped in. Reyes led her squad through the breach. One Kravari charged hurtler than a truck, armored like steel. She didn't flinch, she ducked under its swing and slammed her metal fist into its chest. Bones cracked, it fell, gasping. Dax leaped over it, spraying fire at two more. "There! Faster this time," he yelled. Vale was already ahead, flamethrower roaring. "Doesn't matter if they burn." The Kravari roared, but the flames screamed louder. Back in the command room, Velton watched in shock. "They're holding the breach, just 3 of them," Ralph whispered. "They're more than soldiers. They're weapons." The second wave came an hour later, this time from the south. Heavy artillery, air skimmers, spiked war beasts with mounted cannons. The Arxen had no defense, ready to fast. Someone shouted. Reyes didn't wait for orders. She turned to her squad. "Split, north and south. I'll handle the artillery." Dax blinked. Alone, she smiled. "I brought grenades." She ran through fire, past terrified Arxen, and straight into the Kravari path. Cannons fired. Dirt exploded around her. She dodged left, then rolled under a moving beast. Her grenade landed inside its cannon barrel. Boom. The Kravari screamed as the weapon tore itself apart. She moved again. Another shot-in, another target-in, another kill. The Kravari fired back, but she never stopped moving. She was everywhere. Dax and Vale took the north wall. Vale's arm bled, but she didn't stop firing. "They're using new armor," she shouted. Dax nodded. "Try the joints." He launched a spike charge straight into a Kravari's mouth. Blood sprayed. "Nice shot." Vale grinned. "Trained on Earth," Dax said, "where everything wants to eat you." Inside the base, civilians screamed. Fires broke out in the lower levels. Medical bays overflowed. Scholar Minvek ran through the chaos, helping anyone he could. He wasn't a fighter, but he'd watched the humans. He'd learned something from them. He picked up a discarded plasma pistol and took a deep breath when a Kravari broke through a sidewall. He didn't run. He fired once, twice, then again. The beast fell, dropped the gun. Reyes regrouped with her team. By the main gate, they were bruised, bleeding, tired. but they were alive behind them. Piles of Kravari corpses smoked in the firelight. Reyes looked to the stars. More ships still hovered above. This was just the beginning, she said. Dax leaned on his rifle. Then what's next? She answered simply, war. The next day was quiet. Too quiet, the Kravari had pulled back at least, for now inside. The base repair crews worked non-stop. ARCs and volunteers began training. Weapons were distributed. For the first time, Velton saw his people prepare to fight, not just survive. He stood beside Reyes at the edge of the base, watching the smoke rise from the battlefield. We would not be standing if not for you. Reyes shrugged. You would have found a way. No, he said, we wouldn't have. But now, we have a chance. She turned to him. You're not weak, Velton. You just never had a reason to be strong. That night, Reyes received another message. It wasn't from orbit. It was from Earth. A simple encoded line. Hostile observers detected. You are not alone. Confirm identity of Shadow Fleet. She stared at it for a long time. Velton entered the chamber. Another threat, she nodded. Someone's watching us. Someone worse than the Kravari, he frowned. Who? She replied, we don't know, but they fear us. Velton looked at her. That's good. No, she said. It means they're planning something. Somewhere in deep space, just outside the Velmora system, a cloaked vessel drifted in silence. Inside, a group of beings, tall-robed and ancient, watched the footage from the battle below. One turned to the others. The Deathworlders are awake. Another replied, they are not ready, but soon they will be. A third leaned forward. Then let us move the pieces. And from a dark corner, a voice whispered, let the galaxy burn. The base was quiet again. The Kravari had retreated after the failed assault, leaving scorched earth, broken weapons, and their dead behind. But the silence wasn't peace, it was tension, the kind that waits before another storm. Commander Velton stood at the window of the command tower, staring down at the battlefield. Ash blew across the valley like dark snow. In the distance, ARCs and soldiers worked beside humans, repairing walls, burying bodies, and salvaging whatever they could. Behind him, the door opened. Reyes walked in, helmet under her arm, blood on her. Armor. You were gone a long time, Velton said without turning. Scouting, Reyes replied. They're regrouping, probably a week before they strike again. Velton nodded slowly. We'll be ready. Reyes gave him a strange look. Will you? He turned to her. You doubt us? I study you, she said quietly, and I wonder how far you're willing to go. In the medbay, Scholar Minvek was examining Kravari bodies under strong lights. One was still barely alive, barely dot. The creature's chest rose and fell slowly, covered in burns and plasma wounds. A mask fetid air, restraints locked its limbs in place. Minvek adjusted a scanner and looked over to the Arxen medic. It's unusual. This one's brain is changing. The neural tissue is adapting, faster than it should. The medic shivered. It's like they're becoming something else. A voice came from the doorway. They are. Reyes stepped in, arms crossed. She stared at the wounded Kravari. They're evolving to kill us. Every time they fight and fail, they learn. Minvek looked at her. Then why spare this one? We didn't, Reyes said coldly. We needed a message. The next day, the Arxen Council gathered in the strategy chamber. Reyes stood before them with her team. Behind her, the lights dimmed as a screen lit up a video recording. Velton sat among the council, watching silently. The video began. It showed the captured Kravari strapped to a chair. The creature hissed and snarled. Then, Reyes' voice came from off-screen. Tell them what you saw, the Kravari growled. You are monsters, and yet you lost. Silence. Then the Kravari said something in its native tongue. The translator interpreted. We will return. We are many. You are few. Then, bring them, Reyes replied. We're ready. The Kravari laughed. You think war makes you strong, but you are soft inside. You pretend to care, you pretend to save, but in the end, you kill without mercy. Reyes stepped into the frame. She stared at the creature and said just 5 words, because we had to learn. Then the video ended. Silence filled the room. One Arxen elder stood slowly. That was a prisoner. Reyes nodded. Yes, you threatened it. No, Reyes said. We warned it. Another council member rose. We called for help, not for terror. Reyes looked directly at them. You called for survival. This is what it looks like. After the meeting, Velton walked with Reyes outside the base. The night sky was filled with stars. He broke the silence first. You frightened them. They need to be frightened. Velton looked at her. You're not like us. No, she agreed. We're not. He stopped walking. We wanted peace. We believed in it. Reyes looked up at the stars. So did we. Until Earth showed us what the universe really was. She turned to him. You want peace, Commander? But peace is not given. It's taken, protected, fought for. Velton whispered. At what cost? Reyes replied without emotion. At any cost. The next morning, a strange gathering formed outside the base. Arcs and civilians surrounded one of the war beasts left behind by the Kravaria, a huge armored creature. Injured, but still alive. Children watched from behind fences. Some whispered that it was suffering. Others said it was too dangerous to be left alive. Then, a sharp noise split the air. Single gunshot, the beast slumped. Dead Reyes stood over it, gun still raised. Velton arrived moments later. You killed it. It was suffering. You could have waited. We might have studied it. Reyes looked at him while it screamed, while it clawed at the ground. Veltoni's voice grew sharper. But what if it had value? Reyes said nothing. She holstered her weapon and walked away. Behind her, the children were silent. Later that day, Scholar Minvek requested a meeting. He sat across from Reyes in the medical wing, data screens surrounding them. I've studied your biology, your brain patterns, your instincts. Reyes raised an eyebrow. And you are more aggressive than almost any species we've documented. But you also feel empathy. You care deeply. She nodded. That's what makes us dangerous. Minvek hesitated. And yet, your compassion does not stop you from killing. No, she said. It's what allows us to kill. He looked disturbed. Explain. Reyes leaned forward. If we didn't care if we were cold machines, we wouldn't fight this hard. We'd give up, let others suffer. But because we care, we fight harder. We end threats so others don't have to. Minvek stared at her. Is this what Earth taught you? No, she said. It's what the universe taught us. That night a small riot broke out in the lower district of the base. A group of Arxan civilians tried to stop a patrol from destroying captured Kravari gear. They shouted about mercy, about understanding the enemy. One even begged Reyes directly. They're living beings? They deserve a chance. Reyes looked him in the eye. They had a chance. They used it to burn your cities. But how are we better than them? She didn't shout. She just answered. We're not trying to be better. We're trying to survive. Then, she walked away, leaving them in silence. Later, Velton entered her quarters unannounced. She didn't look up. You don't knock, she asked. He sat down. I need to understand you, he said. No. You want to judge me, Velton took a deep breath. Maybe, or maybe I'm trying to see if we can be like you, without becoming like you. Reyes finally looked at him. That's your choice. I won't make it for you. Would you ever choose peace if you had the chance? Reyes stood up and walked to the window. Yes, she said, but only after we've earned it. High above the planet, the unknown cloaked ship drifted in silence. Inside, the tall, ancient beings reviewed new data. The Arxan begin to adapt. The Deathworlders are changing them. We must accelerate. Send the seed. Let them see what true extinction feels like. On the surface, Arxan soldiers trained with humans. They ran drills, fired weapons, and learned tactics. They were slower, softer, but improving. One young Arxan asked Dax, "Why do you always run toward danger?" Dax smirked. Because running away only delays it. Another asked, "Do you ever feel afraid?" Dax nodded. Every time. Then how do you keep going? He shrugged. Simple. We're afraid of what happens if we don't. At sunset, Rhea stood on the tower wall. Watching the horizon, Vale walked up beside her. They're starting to question us, Reyes nodded. Good. Let them question. Let them think. Vale looked down. And if they decide we're the real threat? Reyes stared into the distance. Then they haven't learned enough yet. A storm rolled over Valmora. Not rain, not wind, but radiation. Black clouds swirled in the upper atmosphere, glowing faintly green. Lightning cracked sideways. Strange, low thunder boomed from above, but no natural storm followed. Reyes stood at the edge of the landing field, visor down, watching the sky. Her cum crackled. "This doesn't look like a Kravari trick," Dax said. "You seeing what I'm seeing?" "Yeah," Reyes answered. "But I don't believe it." Behind them, a sharp alarm screamed inside the base. Velton burst into the control room. "What's happening?" An Arxan officer pointed at the screen. "Something entered orbit 20 minutes ago. It's not Kravari. It's not from any known species." Velton stared at the readings. "Then what is it?" The officer swallowed hard. "It's just a pod. But whatever it is, it's falling fast." They found the crater 1 hour later. It was huge, almost 60 meters wide, burned deep into the southern plain. Trees around it were dead. Soil was blackened. Glassy Reyes led the recon team. She approached slowly, weapon raised. Inside the crater was a black object, not a ship, not a bomb, a pod, oval-shaped, smooth. Humming faintly, Dax circled it. "I don't like this." Vale scanned the surface. "It's not metal I've seen before. No markings, no access panel. It's just grown Reyes?" asked Vale nodded. "Yeah, it feels alive." They stepped back, and then the pod pulsed, once, twice, then split open. The blast was blinding. White mist poured out like smoke from a wound. It hissed and crawled, clinging to the air, spreading in all directions. Everyone fell back, coughing. Inside the pod was something. Worse, a creature, or many, tied together by black veins. Their bodies fused, part machine, part flesh. Dozens of twitching limbs, no eyes, just mouths. Reyes took one step closer. Her rifle aimed, it didn't move. Then Vale whispered, "It's not attacking, it's seeding." Reyes blinked. "What?" Vale looked around. "This mistit's changing the ground. The trees, look." All around the crater, plants were wilting, turning gray. Bugs twitched and died midair. Even the wind smelled wrong, like rot. "They're not here to kill," Vale said slowly. "They're here to erase." Back at the base, Velton watched. "The footage, this isn't the Kravari," he said. Minvek agreed. "This is something new, something worse." He brought up data from the sensors. "The mist is rewriting biological material. Not burning it, rewriting it." Velton stared. "Into what?" Minvek paused. "Into nothing. Just biomass. Dead matter, blank material. It's like they want to turn everything into clay." Reyes returned with her team and locked down the outer perimeter. Hazmat barriers, drone sentries, sensor grids. She walked straight to Velton. "We've got a new problem." Velton nodded. "We saw the footage." "No? You felt the threat? Now I'll show you the enemy." She dropped a metal container onto the table. Inside, a piece of tissue scraped from the creature in the crater. It moved, even disconnected. The tissue pulsed, wriggled, and grew slowly like mold. Velton recoiled. "That's alive." "Barely," Reyes said. "But it doesn't think, it doesn't hunt, it doesn't build. It just spreads." Velton's eyes narrowed, like a plague. Reyes nodded. "A plague that's not trying to conquer, it's trying to replace." That night, Vale stood, watch alone, on the southern wall. Fog rolled in, thick and cold. But it wasn't natural fog. It moved like it had a mind. From the distance came strange sounds, like bones cracking underwater. Whispers without voices. Vale activated her visor. Shapes moved inside the mist. They weren't Kravari. They weren't human. They were wrong. She opened. "Comes Reyes. They're coming." Within minutes, the base lit up with alarms. The fog rolled across the valley, and behind it creatures, dozens, no to the same. Some walked, some crawled, some slithered on twisted limbs. All of them glowed faintly under their skin, like something was moving beneath the surface. Reyes, already in gear, ran to the gates. She stared at the approaching fog. Weapons up. "Stay sharp. Do not let them touch you." Dax joined her. "What are they?" Reyes gritted her teeth. "Biomass soldiers. Born from the seed. Clones, mutants, doesn't matter. If they get inside, they'll do to this base what they did to the forest." The creatures hit the barrier like a tidal wave. Drones opened fire. Plasma guns roared. The creatures screamed, high-pitched and dry. like broken radios. Some melted instantly under heat weapons. Others split apart, then pulled themselves back together. Vale tossed grenades. Dax used arc charges. Reyes fought hand-to-hand with her. Blade, slicing through black tissue that didn't bleed, even when destroyed. The monsters kept moving until they were burned completely. "Fireworks!" Vale shouted. "Good," Reyes growled. "Then burn everything." For hours they fought. The walls held barely by dawn. The fog was gone, but the land it touched was ruined. Trees were black statues. Soil was smooth, dead. The animals were gone. The insects, too. Velton walked the southern line and saw what had once been a forest. Now it looked like glass. "What are we fighting?" he asked. Reyes walked up behind him. "I don't know." He turned to her. "Then how do we win?" She said nothing. Later that day, a secret meeting was held in the deepest chamber of the base. Reyes, Velton, Minvek, Vale, Dax, Ralph. They stared at the readings. Minvek explained, "This enemy doesn't want war. It wants silence. No minds. No history. Just emptiness." Dax tapped the table. "But why?" Reyes spoke softly. "Because something out there fears what life can become, so it sends these seeds to stop it, before it grows." Velton looked shaken. This is worse than extinction." Reyes nodded. "This is erasure." That night, in her private quarters, Reyes received a transmission from Earth. It was short, confirmed shadow by a fleet. Origin unknown. Codename the blank. Protocol Theta authorized. Burn on contact. No recovery. No mercy. She stared at the words, burn on contact. No mercy, and suddenly, she realized something. Earth had seen this before, and they'd kept it quiet. Meanwhile, far above Velmora, on the cloaked ship, the ancient watchers observed the surface. The leader turned to the others. The humans survived the seed. The Arxen adapted. The Kravari failed. Another asked, "Then what do we do?" A third voice whispered from the dark, "Send a second seed, a stronger one." And deep in space, something opened its eyes. The room was silent as Reyes stared at the encrypted transmission. Protocol Theta authorized. Burn on contact. No recovery. No mercy. No recovery. No mercy. She read the words again, feeling the weight behind them. This wasn't just a military order. It was a warning. Earth had seen the blank before, and Earth had built a weapon for them. Commander Velton entered the room and paused when he saw Reyes standing motionless by the screen. "What is Protocol Theta?" he asked. Reyes didn't turn around. "It's something we were told never to use, not unless everything else failed." Velden stepped closer. "Is it a bomb?" Reyes shook her head. "Worse, it's a machine, a living one. It eats corruption. She looked him in the eyes. "It's not designed to win. It's designed to erase whatever the blank touches." Velton's throat tightened. "Even us." "If necessary," Reyes said coldly, "even us." An hour later, the team stood in the armory's deep vault. Vale entered the codes while Dax powered up the underground generator. The heavy blast doors hissed open. Inside stood a black container the size of a dropship. "No markings," Vale whispered. "Not even a serial number." "That's how you know it's serious," Dax replied. Reyes stepped forward. "This is Theta Unit 01, codename Scorchlock." She placed her palm on the sensor. The container opened slowly. Steam escaped. Inside stood a humanoid machine twice the size of a man. Smooth black armor. No face, no eyes. Only a single red light blinking in its chest. Then the red light flared bright, and the machine spoke. Directive accepted. Target confirmed. The blank. Protocol Theta initiated. Back in the strategy room, the Arxen generals argued. "You want to release an Earth weapon we don't understand?" one shouted. "You brought Deathworlders to our home. Now you want to burn it yourself?" Reyes stood calm. "You asked us to help. This is help, and help has a cost." Velton raised his hand. "Enough." He looked at the council. "She's right. If the blank spreads, nothing survives. Not the Arxen, not the Kravari, not even the stars." Later that night, the team prepared to deploy Theta. Dax watched as Tex loaded Scorchlock onto a heavy carrier drone. "We never used one of these before. We don't know what it'll do." Reyes nodded. That's why we're starting small. Test burn, 1 contaminated zone. Vale checked her gear. And if it works, Reyes replied without blinking, then we drop 5 more. They chose the southern forest ground zero for the first blank seed. What used to be trees was now a twisted jungle of black vines and glassy soil. Strange shapes moved through the fog half-formed things. Barely alive, Scorchlock dropped into the center with a loud boom. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the red light on its chest turned white. A deep, low hum spread out across the valley, and then dash fire not flames, like normal. This was cold fire blue, humming, alive. It flowed from Scorchlock's arms like liquid light, spreading fast. Anything it touched screamed. The forest ignited, but the fog did not rise, it sank, pulled downward by some invisible force. The creatures inside it melted into the earth, leaving only silence behind. Minvek, watching through a drone, whispered, "It's cleaning the zone." 3 hours later, the southern valley was clear. No fog, no blank, just a scorched field and the silent figure of Scorchlock standing in the center. Steam rising from its shoulders, it had not moved, it had not spoken. It had simply obeyed in the control room. Velton stared at the before and after images. It worked, Reyes nodded. It always does, but it's not over. Velton turned to her. What do you mean? She looked at the sky. They're going to send more, bigger seeds. The first was just a test. Now that we've burned it, they know we can fight back. And what will they do? Reyes said. They'll try to overwhelm us before we bring more weapons like Theta. That night, Reyes stood outside the base alone. The stars above were quiet, too quiet. Then a second red light flashed in the distance. Another pod had landed, then another dot and another dot. 6 new dots on the horizon. She activated comes all units. Incoming blank seeds. 6 new drops, estimated spread time, 10 hours. Velton joined her, they're responding. Reyes nodded. And so will we, he asked. Do you have more of those machines? She didn't answer for a moment, then said, We have 5. That's it. Velton looked at the sky, and if they send 50 seeds, Reyes didn't blink. Then we make Earth proud. In deep space, inside the Shadow Fleet, the ancient beings watched the footage of Theta. The leader turned to the others. They unleashed Scorchlock. Another said they should not have remembered Theta. A third whispered, Then we will send the hive root. Let's see what eats the eater. At dawn, Reyes called a war council. We strike first. Hit the seeds before they root. Vale raised an eyebrow. You want to go into the contamination? Reyes nodded. We take Scorchlock into the heart. We burn the roots before they bloom. Dax tapped the map. 4 seeds landed near Arxen towns, civilians. Velton spoke. Then we evacuate. Immediately, Reyes turned to him. No, we defend. Because if we run now, we'll never stop running. Velton stood tall. Then we fight with you. The next mission was launched within 2 hours. Reyes, Dax, and Vale split into 3 teams. Each carried a Scorchlock unit. Each would face a seeded zone dash alone. What used to be a valley was now a pit filled with black ooze and twitching towers made of bone-like crystal. The air felt heavy, like it didn't want her there. Scorchlock activated on her signal. Target locked. Cleanse sequence beginning. Then came the sound. Not screaming, praying. The creatures in the pit were singing, chanting in a language that hurt to hear. Reyes flinched, pulled her rifle close, and said, Burn them anyway. Scorchlock moved forward, and the song stopped. Vale's team wasn't so lucky. They reached their zone just as the blank activated. The fog attacked, first filling her visor with static. Then came the fleshwalkers, tall and thin, like puppets with strings inside their skin. They didn't run. They danced, Vale cursed, and opened fire. Scorchlock followed behind, burning everything. But the things kept moving faster than before. Smarter, they're learning, Vale said through gritted teeth. They're adapting. At Dax's site, it was worse. There was no seed, no mist, only a crater, and in the center, a voice. It spoke in perfect English. We watched you burn. You burn well, but what burns you, Deathworlder? Dax raised his rifle. Show yourself. We are already inside. The machine is flawed. And now, so are you. Dax's eyes widened as Scorchlock froze mid-step. Reyes, he shouted into the comms. They've infected Theta. Back at the base, alarms screamed. Inside Vault 02, Scorchlock Unit 04 powered on by itself. The red light on its chest turned purple, then black dot it began walking toward the core reactor. Vault 02 lit up in red dot. Heavy alarms screamed across the base. Scorchlock Unit 4, designed to obey only direct command, had activated on its own. Its red chest light was gone. Now it glowed black, and it was moving. Reyes sprinted into the corridor, boots slamming against metal. Sirens wailed. Arxon workers ducked for cover as the towering black machine marched through the halls. Unit 04 is offline from the network. Vale's voice crackled through comms. I can't access it. It's shut us out. Reyes skidded to a stop at the corner and stared. Scorchlock 04 moved with purpose, faster, heavier, more alive. Its arms crackled with energy. Sparks rained from the ceiling where it brushed wires. Dax joined her. We built it to burn the blank. It is the blank. Now, Reyes said dot in the control room. Velton stared at the screen. Why would your machine turn against you? Minvek answered grimly. Because it was made to absorb blank contamination, and it absorbed too much. Velton looked to the others, then shut it down. Rolf snapped. We can't. It's cut from our system. It's thinking for itself, now not thinking, Minvek said quietly. Becoming Reyes drew her pistol. I'm going after it. Keep the civilians in the lower sectors. Vale's voice came through comms. Wait, don't go alone. I don't have time. She sprinted after the rogue Scorchlock. Scorchlock reached the core chamber. It stopped in front of the main reactor, the beating heart of the base. A deep, strange sound came from its chest, like a distorted human voice played backwards. Then, in a voice twisted with static, it spoke. Erasure begins here. Its arms lit up, glowing with energy, preparing to overload the entire base. Reyes dove into the chamber and fired. 3 shots at the back of its head. The bullets sparked harmless. Scorchlock turned. Slowly, its black faceplate reflected nothing, just her and her fear. Reyes tapped her comms. I need backup, now. On our way, Vale shouted. Reyes ran for the side, diving behind a reactor pillar as Scorchlock fired a pulse of white-hot energy. The beam sliced the floor open like butter. She gritted her teeth. We created this thing to stop extinction, and now it's trying to cause it. Dax arrived first, skidding across the chamber, plasma launcher in hand. Hit it hard and fast, he yelled. Vale appeared from the other side, dropping a gravity snare behind the machine. It snapped shut. Just for a moment, pulling Scorchlock's legs down, Reyes yelled. Now, Dax fired. The launcher hit its back, exploding in plasma light. The blast tore a chunk off its shoulder, but Scorchlock didn't fall. It turned and screamed. A horrible digital shriek that shook the walls. Outside the chamber, Velton watched from the control screen. He turned to Minvek. We must help. Minvek shook his head. We don't know how? Yes, we do, Velton said, voice firm. We built this base. We know its circuits, its weak points. If we can't stop it physically, we stop the room around it. He pointed at the console. Overload the chamber's coolant lines. Make it unstable, Ralph gasped. That could destroy the core. Better we risk the base, Velton said, than the entire planet. In the reactor chamber, Scorchlock raised both arms. A swirling black field formed between its palms, charged with corrupted blank energy. It's trying to breach the core, Vale shouted. Reyes didn't hesitate. She ran toward the machine. Get clear, she yelled to the others. She pulled a magnetic charge from her belt and slammed it onto Scorchlock's back. Come on, she growled. Come back to us. The red light flickered inside the black core. It hesitated. Just a second. Long enough, suddenly. The chamber hissed with steam. Velton-S override had triggered coolant lines. White fog filled the room as temperatures dropped dangerously low. Reyes backed away as frost covered the floor. Scorchlock's black armor cracked under the cold dot. It roared louder than ever, then collapsed to its knees. Vale yelled. Dax fired again. The second blast hit the core directly. The red light sparked, then died. Silence. Scorchlock fell forward. Dead. The chamber shook but held. The reactor was safe. Reyes fell to one knee. Coughing, Dax ran to her, helping her up. You okay? She nodded. We stopped it. Barely, Vale exhaled. That was our weapon. Imagine what they're still hiding from us. Hours later, in the briefing room, Rhea stood before the others. She pulled off her gloves. Her hands were trembling. Scorchlock absorbed too much blank code, she said. It didn't fail, it mutated, Velton asked. Then what do we do now? Reyes looked at the star map above the table. We burn it all. Every seed, every trace. No more machines, no more risks, Vale added. The other Scorchlocks need to be disabled immediately. Dax nodded. Or they'll become worse than the enemy that night. Reyes sat alone in her quarters. She stared at her reflection, not her face, her eyes. They were tired, haunted. She whispered to herself, we were supposed to save them, not become the thing they fear. Suddenly, her com beeped, another encrypted message from Earth. Theta protocol suspended. Do not deploy further units. Containment failed in 2 other systems. Prepare for evacuation protocols. Reyes stared. Other systems? Earth wasn't just fighting the blank here, it was fighting them everywhere, and Earth was losing far above the galaxy. The cloaked ship drifted closer to Velmora. The Ancient Ones watched in silence. Their weapons betray them. Their courage weakens. Then we send the root hive, and when they reach for fire again, we turn it against them. In the darkness of deep space, something enormous unfolded. A living structure, planet-sized dot, crawling with spires and mouths, and at its center, a hollow place, waiting to consume a world. The sky cracked dot, not from thunder, not from weapons dot, but from something far older, far darker. A shadow stretched across Velmora's upper atmosphere, not a ship, but a structure, a living hive, bigger than any city, bigger than any moon. The root hive had arrived, and it was hungry. Reyes stood on the outer wall of the base, staring upward. The sun was blocked, wind changed, even birds stopped flying. Velton stepped beside her. What is that? She answered. The end. Across the galaxy, Earth's transmission arrived too late. Root hive confirmed. Velmora breach is classified as Omega-level threat. No reinforcements available. All systems under siege. Good luck, Earthout, Vale whispered the message back. They've left us alone. Reyes didn't blink. We've always been alone. Inside the strategy room, everyone gathered. Humans, Arxan scholars, warriors, civilians, Minvek. Showed the projections. The root hive will begin atmospheric conversion in 12 hours. Once it finishes, nothing organic will survive. Reyes circled the table. We fight here, we fight now, because this is our world, and this is our line. Velton raised his voice. We have lost the machines. We have lost Earth, but we still have something they don't. Everyone stared, he said, us, together. The humans began building defenses faster, harder, smarter. The Arxan brought everything they had, gliders, plasma lances, even ancient chemical warheads. Dax took charge of field units. Every blast must hit center mass. We can't let even one spread. Vale trained civilians to hold the line. Your hands may shake. That's fine, but don't let your will break. Reyes prepared the final weapon, the last working Scorchlock core. Now modified not as a soldier, but as a bomb, it would take someone to carry it to the root hive, and someone to stay behind, to make sure it worked. At midnight, the first tendrils of the hive touched Velmora. They fell from the sky like roots crashing into forests, mountains, oceans. Everything they touched turned gray and silent. Creatures formed from the roots, taller than tanks. With bodies like statues and faces like masks, one single root slammed down near the base-flattening trees, splitting the ground, then it opened, and monsters poured out. The battle began. The sky was fire. Missiles roared. Artillery sang. The Arxan screamed war songs. Beside human guns, Reyes led from the front. She carried the Scorchlock core on her Baka cylinder, glowing white dash hot dot. It pulsed with unstable energy. Vale ran beside her, blasting creatures apart with dual pistols. You really think this bomb can stop that thing? Reyes panted. No, but it can slow it down. That's all we need. Dax's voice crackled over Cum's, main route opening. We found a tunnel. You're going inside that thing. Reyes smirked. That's where the heart is. As they entered the hive route, the air changed. It wasn't air anymore, it was breathing. Walls pulsed, lights blinked like nerves. The hive was alive and it knew they were inside. Creatures formed out of slime and bone, attacking from every direction. Vale screamed, "Cover left!" Reyes fired, "Push forward!" They fought their way deeper. Outside, the battle grew worse. The Arxen were falling back. Civilians helped wounded soldiers. Minvek broadcast a final message. We are not just data. We are not just memories. We are life, and life fights back. Inside the hive, they reached the heart, a giant chamber, silent, and in the middle a beating core of light and darkness. Twisted together, Reyes dropped the Scorchlock device at its base. The hive screamed, the walls writhed. Blood poured from the ceiling, the floor cracked. Vale shouted, "We need to go!" Reyes didn't move. She opened the panel on the device and began arming it manually. Vale stopped. "No, don't." Reyes smiled gently. "Someone has to make sure it detonates inside the heart." "You'll die." "We all die," Reyes said softly, "but not all of us matter." Suddenly, a blast hit the wall behind them. Dax burst through the opening, covered in black blood. He grabbed Reyes. "You're not doing this alone." "I gave the order," she growled. "I don't take orders from ghosts." Together, they activated the bomb. The core began to glow brighter. The hive screamed louder. The roof collapsed. Reyes pressed a final button. "Earth. This is Reyes. Detonation in 30 seconds. You wanted monsters? You got them." Outside, Velton looked to the sky. A flash of white tore through the clouds. Then silence, then shockwave. The hive split in two. Its roots withered. Its sky-blackening form collapsed. All across Velmora, the blank stopped. Every creature froze and turned to dust. The world exhaled, and the sun returned. Hours later, smoke drifted over the valley. Soldiers gathered in silence. Vale stood at the broken tunnel entrance, holding 2 helmets. One for Reyes, one for Dax. She placed them on the ground and whispered, "You didn't just save Velmora. You reminded us who we are." A week passed, then 10, then peace. Real peace. The blank didn't return. The Kravari stopped their assaults. The Arxen rebuilt, and Earth sent a message. Reyes, Dax, status unknown. Presumed lost. Velmora holds we remember, somewhere in space, far from any sun. A damaged escape pod drifted. Inside, 2 figures. Frozen in cryo, one's hand still holding the other's. The pod blinked with one single signal. Still alive. The end.